Welcome, welcome. I'm Avalon, and this is Voice Notes from the Chrysalis, my 21 episode podcast sharing all the golden nuggets that I have discovered through being deeply transformed over the past 5 years to celebrate the launch of my digital course, Discover Yourself. So excited. And today we are talking about the idea that everything that we actually need is within us already. And this is kind of a primer for episode 3 about how we're going to get real about being responsible for ourselves. But this is the primer. This is the epilogue? No, prologue. This is the prologue. And I want to talk about how oh, God, like going through the hardest shit of my whole entire life. I have always, every single time, gone back to the things that are within me to get out of it, to heal myself, to shift my life, to take responsibility, to make things happen, to allow good things to happen, like depending on the situation. Everything comes back to the things I already have within me. And I really believe this is true for all of us, but I'll tell you a story to exemplify this. So, up until the age of 20, I experienced intermittent suicide ideation. Like, literally, I remember being, I think this was before I was even in school. I think I was like 4 years old and literally grew up in a Christian household, and I literally remember praying to Jesus to just take me now. And I'm sorry that that got dark real fast. But yeah, I had suicide ideation on and off through like since age 4 was probably the earliest time. And honestly, like progressively got worse, as you can imagine, becoming a preteen and then a teenager, and my like household getting like ripped apart, like when my parents divorced, and then getting into that normalcy, and then having it ripped apart again when my mom remarried my stepdad, who literally changed my life for the better. I will probably tell you about him later. Um, but as a 14-year-old having my life ripped apart and moving to new school and just being so not okay in so many ways. And then moving out of the house, my mom living with my mom and stepdad, moving out of that house as soon as humanly possible. All love and respect, but had to get out of there. I think many of you can relate. And going through first massage school, I knew I wanted to go to college, but I didn't know what for. And there was a massage school in the town next over to me. And so I went to massage school for a year and figured out that I wanted to, originally, I thought I wanted to go into the medical field and be a doctor. That did not happen. Anyway, like, was in college, and for better or worse, like instead of living on campus and making friends, I did not. I largely did not make friends in college. College was an incredibly challenging time for so many reasons for me. And I ended up living with multiple long-term boyfriends as kind of my living situation. And there were problems with that because I definitely stayed in relationships that I didn't need to be staying in just for housing security. Yeah, had the most volatile, hostile breakup ever at age 20 and created a hostile living environment for the last few months of finishing up my lease. I would have moved home to my parents, but there was a third roommate involved and she begged me to stay. So I did and made a new plan with a new roommate who was my best friend at the time. And we signed a lease. We put down a deposit. We were so excited. We both worked together at the same employer at the time, both going to school. We're gonna be a few blocks away from where we worked at the time. And we had a huge falling out. a huge falling out that summer before we were supposed to move in together. And she backed out of the lease. Luckily, someone else took it over. We got our money back, but I didn't have a place to move into. And I was feeling extremely socially isolated. So I moved back in with my parents. And that was the lowest point of my life. To move back in with my mom and stepdad at that point in my life, ooh, I like feel nauseous thinking about it, even remembering it. I've blocked out a lot of that. And I was in the darkest place of my life. I, yeah, was very much having suicidal thoughts every day. And I had enough awareness, going back to like, we always have what we need within us. I learned how to meditate at a very young age, and I learned how to separate what I'm experiencing from who I am, essentially, and essentially becoming an observer of what I'm experiencing, including like what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. Thank God for that. I might not be here if it wasn't for that. Learning how to meditate at 8 years old. Thanks, Dad. Literally saved my life. I had enough awareness that I was so not okay that I didn't tell my parents, but I made it an excuse to get out of the house. I made an appointment with my PCP at the time, and I got on antidepressants. I got on Lexapro, and I was like, and that, did its job. Kind of like just numbed everything to like, okay, I'm here and I can stay here. Um, and and then I kind of got really real with myself and was like, I need therapy and I can't afford therapy. I was working like three part-time jobs. This was summertime in between semesters. Yeah, I couldn't afford to go to therapy, and I also would have had to tell my parents. So I was like, okay, well, I need to get myself out of this hole. I need to figure this out. And I had the awareness of like, this has been getting worse over the years. And it, I needed to proceed with my life knowing that this was going to get better, obviously. And so I did the only thing that I could think of, and I created a protocol for myself where I would wake up and meditate every morning for 30 minutes, like rigorously, like no excuses, just sit there and be with myself and be with my thoughts for 30 minutes every day, and then journal, write down anything and everything that comes to mind for at least 30 minutes after that. Do that morning and night. First thing, wake up, last thing I do before going to bed in my parents' house. And I did this for I think at least a couple of weeks. And like so frustrating and scary because nothing was really happening until I had what I can only call like the biggest spiritual awakening ever. And I feel like I figured out why I had that persistent and recurring suicidal ideation. From my perspective, it had to do with a past life, and really wanting and not finding what I wanted in that past life and searching for it in this current life, and then not finding it, wanting to very quickly just let's go on to the next life. Let's keep searching for this thing, this place of home, which is hilarious. I was looking for a real sense of home, a real sense of place and security in my soul, like on a soul level. And what's great is in an episode later, I am going to talk about the next layer, the next spiritual awakening that happened years and years later, this year, recently, about coming home to myself. But you'll have to stay tuned for that. This is just the first layer of spiritual awakening. But the thing that got me through that experience, oh, and I guess to tie up that story, once I had this realization, once I had this memory of a past life and this awareness, I've literally never had suicide ideation ever again. Like it like dissipated. It like the thing that needed to click clicked. And I'm not saying that we can always like intellectualize what we're going through and just that like mental awareness will make what we're experiencing go away. I'm not saying that at all. This felt like a spiritual experience where I remembered this important context and then I resolved and I accepted that I'm here in this life and I'm on a different mission and we can let go of that searching and seeking desperately for that thing, that place of home, because I'm gonna find it in this life. I'm laughing because ugh, I yeah, because that next chapter that I'll tell you about soon, it only gets better. It only gets better. So I that all that to say, if you're going through a really shitty time right now, if you are having a really hard time, if you are having suicidal ideation, please go get help. You there like this was back in the day when I like there probably was free therapy at the time, but I couldn't have accessed it by myself without my parents knowing. But there is free therapy now, online licensed therapists that can and will help you. There are suicide hotlines. I, yeah, have so much more awareness now of this. And if you are listening to this and you need help, please get help. I will put resources in the show notes for you. I love you, and I'm so, so sorry you're going through that. But I deeply believe that everything that we actually need is already within us. My healing came through confronting myself. My healing came through using a skill that I had had for years since I was 8 years old. And it came through this observership that I possibly always had, but had developed a name for it. And every everything that got me out of that situation, and then after like after healing that wound that was underneath the suicide ideation, I very quickly found the cheapest housing situation I've ever been in, renting a room for $200 a month from a church on campus. Yeah, and like one of the best like roommate living situations I've ever been in, and then moved on to other apartments and like it only my life for the most part, my life for the most part only went up from there. And everything that brought me out of that was already within me. Everything that I needed was already there. So I can only speak about my experience and what I have noticed, but being deeply transformed, I know that I can go through the depths of hell, the actual deepest, darkest realities that I can imagine. And I know that I can come out of it because of the things that are already within me that either I was born with, were placed within me. If you believe in like higher power and like, you know, being born with like God's gifts and things like that, like, yeah, it's that. Or it's just the things that we have innately as humans that will get us through the deepest, darkest times. And I deeply believe that everything that we go through is for a reason and is building on to prepare us for what we are meant to do and what we are about to go through. So I only had that idea to dive into meditation and journaling, partially because I had just gone through massage school and gone through this protocol of before every class doing an hour of yoga and then doing lecture and then practicing massage and doing that 4 days a week for 9 months. Like that, like especially doing like yoga and then a little bit of meditation, shavasana, like after um in those yoga sessions, like that practice. I went through that to show me that a daily, twice daily practice can transform you completely and deeply. But I really wish that I had had the me that I am today to guide myself back then. And I absolutely would have benefited from just like a deeper understanding of like who I am as a person and like specifically like understanding and really like being honest with myself and realizing like what do I actually like value? What is actually important to me? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Like, and how do I actually feel about my life? I ended up realizing that. But if I had had the exercises that are in my Discover Yourself course, then, oh my God, I would have, I like I can't even tell you how much time I would have saved, so much, how much heartache, how much just years of being lost and figuring it out the hard way. So, all of that wisdom and those tools are in my course, Discover Yourself, that is releasing for the early birds at a discount on December 21st, the winter solstice. And for the public, it's releasing on December 28th. So, I hope you check that out on my website. And I'm so excited. We are just getting into the juicy, juicy parts. Episode one, let's talk about suicide ideation. Sorry, love you. But that was just really like the best example to talk about how, yeah, we have everything that we need to get through anything already inside of ourselves. And it's just a matter of really being present and really seeing ourselves and really confronting ourselves to access that and get through anything. So I love you, and I'll see you soon.